You know, when you publish your first book and you're a young man, you have all kinds of opportunities. The slate is yet to be written upon. When you've had a lot of success in your life, as you release another book, is the experience, like, how has that experience changed?
I think because I was unsuccessful commercially as a writer for the writing of my first 4 novels, that when the 4th one went big and I became self-supporting as a writer, I continue to feel lucky about that. Maybe if it had happened the first time, I would have grown used to it or take it for granted or something, but I resented for the writing of those first 4 novels that I didn't have more than an hour and a half or 2 hours a day to do it. I said, give me 8 hours a day and let me do it. Let me just do that and nothing else, you know. And so once it happened, I haven't regretted a minute of it. I mean, I feel I can use my time more effectively now than ever. So it's exciting every time.
Do you do 8 hours a day now? How do you approach it now?
I do 7 days a week, you know, 8 or 9 hours a day. It's no problem. I mean, it took me a while to be able to concentrate for that period of time. It took me the writing of 1 book, my 5th book, The Hotel New Hampshire. I was disappointed in myself because I suddenly got what I wished for and I couldn't use the time. And I was really down on myself for the writing of that book. But by the time I got to The Cider House Rules, which was the 6th novel, I filled the day, and I'm still able to fill it.
I mean, this story here is, you've got lots of things in this story, but a lot of the books that you write, there are parts of your life that I'm sure can appear in the book. In this one, have you ever accidentally killed somebody or left town with a widower? Or
Thankfully, no.
Yeah, good.
I think this book is more about the things I fear than it is about the things that have actually happened to me. Although in the case of one of the characters, I do make him a writer. That's the 3rd time I've done that, out of 12 novels. And in this case, which is new, I give him virtually my same process as a writer. And that felt good. It felt like an opportunity to explain the way I work, but to make it integral to the story and integral to the character.
If this is about your fears and this writer, you've given him your process, is it like you started here and as you started to write books and use yourself, it worked its way away from you, your experiences, or have you worked closer to yourself? Like when you get to your fears and that, it's coming closer to you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm a very slow processor. Owen Meany, my Vietnam novel, was written 20 years after the war. When I wrote The Cider House Rules, I purposely set it in the 30s and the 40s to take the abortion argument away from the current climate of debate.
Right.
I really like the telephoto lens. I like giving some distance. I've been more truthful to my own childhood and adolescence in my 11th novel than I ever was in the first 2 or 3. It just may be a feature of being slow. I've always done things very slowly. I do things very methodically, and I work all the time, but I don't rush, you know? I don't rush.
Is it also because it just gives you a better place from which to reflect upon? Like you can see it with a little bit of distance, and if you're closer, you might not see the whole story.
Well, you can certainly afford to be funnier about things that when they happen to you weren't funny at the time. You can afford to take liberties with characters who come from moments in your life that if you're writing about them when you're standing this close to them, you won't invent very much. You won't invent enough. And so I think by giving myself time, especially with those things that have made me angry or upset me or were emotionally or psychologically disturbing, the longer I wait before I write about them, the more I can use what still makes me angry about them, but at the same time, I can be a little more playful.
You know, Dylan said that he doesn't, when he hears some of his early stuff, those songs that made him who he was to the people, he doesn't even recognize that guy. He hears those lyrics and he's like, who says that? Who comes up with that? When you have distance from your earlier work, especially the 4th novel, the stuff that became successful, do you recognize, the guy that wrote those books?
Barely. I'd have to agree with him, but because I'm not a songwriter, unlike him, I don't have to hear myself on the radio at sort of unwelcome moments of time. He would have gotten sick of one of his own songs in the case of this novel, because for 20 years I've been thinking about a cook and his son who run away, who become fugitives. But this book has been in the back of my mind for that long, and the Dylan song, which is an epigraph to the beginning of the novel, from Tangled Up in Blue, has been in my mind almost that long. I always knew it would be the epigraph to this novel if I ever wrote it.
Tangled Up in Blue might be the perfect song.
Well, it's a great song, and this is a great stanza. It's the one, I had a job in the Great North Woods working as a cook for a spell, but I never did like it all that much, and one day the axe just fell. And so it was easy to remember the song than it was to begin this book.
Okay, well then I'm curious about the fears. If this is based on, if it's inspired by some of your greatest fears, which are the clear fears?
Well, how many novels have I written about the fear of losing a child, or actually losing a child? Thank God I have not lost a child. I have 3 boys. But like any parent with an imagination, I think about it. I have nightmares about it. And I think a part of what I write is about what I hope never happens to me. Maybe in the first 3 or 4 novels, I was even conscious that if I wrote about these things, if I made them come to life in fiction, then they would never happen to me. But obviously by the time you're writing your 12th novel, it doesn't work. So if the fear hasn't gone away, it's not likely to, right?
You're like the reverse secret. You're putting all the bad stuff in the universe, hoping it doesn't come back.
Well, yes, that's very true. I remember it was sometime after I read Moby Dick that I read that Melville said to young writers, "Woe to him who seeks to please rather than appall." And from that moment, I began to think, okay, it's a positive thing as a writer to appall. And you can't expect to appall an audience, to frighten your readers, if you're not also afraid of this happening to you.
Sure. But what a beautiful moment as a human being when you face a scary wall and say, I can use that now. Like, I don't have to try to get to other people in a positive way. I don't have to soften my message. I can just write what's in my head. Was that
That's true. That's true, but because I have this process where I always begin with an end sentence, I always know what the end is, and I work my way back. I make a kind of roadmap from the last sentence to the first sentence, which to me comes last. When I begin the actual writing of a book, I have the action of the story all in outline, no details, but I know when the characters meet one another. I know if their paths cross again. I know which ones make it and which ones don't, and how they die, if they die. So that there's a kind of fatalism that is residing with me for the 3 or 4 years that I'm in the writing process, because I already know what happens to these characters.
What if you can build a different relationship with them? Because a lot of authors will write their characters and fall in love with them, and then they get to that place where their character has to go, and that's hard. But for you, when I read it, it's like you're deep with the characters, you get into many different layers, but you do have this is like this sense of gloom and dread that comes around many pages.
There is, and in a story like this one, which begins with a single violent act and a violent accident, you kind of know, as you would with an American Western, as you would with those old Greek plays, the Oedipus cycle, that nothing good can come of this.
Oh, and that ended so badly.
Yeah, didn't it? Well, I mean, what do you expect? If you kill your father and sleep with your mother, is that a happy story?
No, not at all. Not even in Kentucky, man.
Yeah, it's not likely it's going to end well.
Definitely not. Okay, we'll come back. We'll talk more with John, but we'll talk about wrestling. We'll do wrestling. We'll throw some names at him as well to get his reaction. More with the great John Irving when we come back. I felt